My film Concrete River is actually happening, and that terrifies me. Just a couple of weeks ago, I got a text at night from my producer, Chris Hall, that our film was happening. He had had conversations with a potential investor who was thinking about investing 100 grand into our film. And I got a text that he had gone to pick up the check, it was in his hand, and that it was being deposited in a bank account. I guess the normal reaction would have been to like jump up in the air, spin around in my chair, just be over the moon. But instead, I just sat there looking at that text for longer than probably what was considered normal. Because while I was happy, I was also terrified because what I had dreamed about happening for 2 years was finally coming to fruition. And now the real work starts, and I actually have to start making this film instead of just dreaming about it. Now we have a date. The end of September, the week of September 23rd, is when we are scheduled to roll cameras. And we still have some extra money to raise. We still have locations to find, but the film is happening. And I'm still not entirely sure how to process what that exactly means. I've been living with this film since honestly before the pandemic. After I made my last short film, Breakaway, the original DP, who was the DP for Concrete River, sent me a text message that he had an idea for a story. That idea being about a homeless guy that he had interacted with while he was working on large productions downtown. And he told me another one about a producer friend of his whose father was homeless and had some mental issues. And every once in a while, he would show up to an event that she would run for homeless veterans and make a scene. So I had a character and a scene. And I knew that I wanted to be about a man trying to reconnect with his daughter, but I wasn't sure what to do with that. And then the pandemic hit. And during this time frame, I was working a lot. I was editing celebrity lifestyle shows on YouTube, but at night I had a lot of time to think, and I just kept coming back to the story about a father who was homeless trying to reconnect with his estranged daughter. And I was thinking of what is the glue that ties them together. And one night it just hit me, music, because I love music and I think that music really brings people together. Everything unfolded from there. I wrote about 15 drafts, and in 2024, it was ready to go into development, like real development. We're going to actually try and make this film. We started casting. My producer, Chris Hall, had a little bit of money that he was going to invest, and we found out that that wasn't going to be enough. We wanted to make a micro budget. We were trying to make this film for $50,000 or less, because that is the general advice that you get when you are making a micro budget film, which is make something for 50 grand or less. It doesn't have to be good. It should only be in one location, so that way you can put it up on Tubi and make your money back. But when we thought about the film that we were trying to make and what we're trying to say, we realized that we would be doing not only the film, but also ourselves a disservice by trying to whittle it down to as little as possible. So we decided to make a trailer, and we were going to shoot that trailer last year. And then everything kind of fell apart, which you can watch in this video of the story of how that happened. And I didn't know whether this film was going to happen. I didn't know if that was the one shot that we had and we had blown it, and this film would be like what happens to a lot of projects, which just does not see the light of day. Maybe it was indeed a sign that this was doomed to fail, that it was not going to come to fruition. But being the person that I am, I try to keep going anyway because it's a story that spoke to me and still speaks to me and that I still live with. And whenever I show people the script or the concept, they get very excited. So I just knew that I had to try and see this through. But then I got news earlier this year that my producer might have a lead to an investor, and then that maybe turned into a possibility, and then that possibility turned into a definitely, and that definitely is now 100 grand sitting in a bank account. And with the process in my mind going from very long to very short, I will say that the fear has started to kick in. And the fear comes in this little voice that says, don't fuck this up. And part of that fear comes from the process of letting go. There are five films that you make. There's the film that you make in your head, there's the film that you write, there's the film that you shoot, there's the film that you edit, and then there's the film that the audience perceives. And each process of going through those different films that you make is letting go. And we're afraid to let go because if you've lived with something for so long, you form an attachment to it. It's kind of like your child that you're raising, but eventually you have to let the child go. But it's scary. And another part of the fear is because while I've been working on many things, it's mostly been as a producer and an editor. There's the documentary that I have been directing, but that is an entirely different form of project. But as far as me being on a set with actors and cameras, it's been almost a decade. 2018 is when we shot Breakaway, and I have not really set foot on a set with the intention of being the director since that time. And while having rehearsals and auditions has gotten that muscle back, it's still out of shape. So there is a little bit of fear of how much is this going to hurt? Will I be able to deliver? How will I get back into the habit? Will I be able to perform? All of those fears are in the back of my head. And I know that as time goes along, those fears will subside and dissipate, but the fear is there nonetheless. And another fear that has come about is just the fear of putting more of my own story into this film. One of the things when I started working with Chris that he really enjoyed was the mission statement behind my company, the Blended Future Project, which is creating cinematic experiences for the mixed generation, because that is the experience that I grew up with. And I would like to create media that speaks to that experience because I know there's a lot of people who not only have that, but there'll be more people in the future that will have it. So, what does that experience look like? Feel like? How do people come to understand it so that we're not so afraid of each other? While this film does delve into topics of identity, not only mixed identity, because some of the characters are mixed, but just your identity as a person. Travis is a character who doesn't really belong anywhere. On the outside, he's a black dude. He's a black homeless dude who makes music. That's it. But underneath, he also has what could be considered a mixed identity. He grew up in the Midwest. He kind of doesn't really fit anywhere. I mean, right now he lives on the street, so he definitely does not fit in with most of society. He's a music producer who can see music, so that makes him stand out. So where does he fit? And a lot of times when you're confused about your identity, you're trying to figure out, okay, where do I go where I will fit in? Where can I go that I will be safe? When actually you are safe with the things that are right in front of you. But trying to go someplace and figure out where you belong is how you can lose the forest for the trees, which is the journey that the characters in this film go on. And some of that is also my own journey, not just as a mixed person, but also as an artist and a filmmaker. I always had this impression that I had to do certain things first in order to be a filmmaker. Like when I made a short film, I was like, I'm not going to be considered a real filmmaker until I make a feature film. So I spent a lot of time not making anything, trying to make that magical, mystical feature film, the one that would put me in the spotlight instead of just making work. And then when I thought, okay, I'm going to make a short film, but it's got to be like this kind of short film. It's got to cost like 50 grand. It's got to be this big spectacle. Otherwise, it's not worth it. And I was always losing the plot because the goal was not to make a certain type of thing to get a certain type of recognition. The goal was to just create. And that is what I have now realized and what these characters are realizing. And that is something that I have been very intentional about putting into the script because I think a lot of us can resonate with that. That we always think, oh, I need to do this and that first before I can do the thing I really want to do, when we should just do what we really want to do because doing that is the reward. So I've been doing several rewrites to bring those elements out in a way that feels earned and not just like two characters having monologues at each other where they're talking about their problems and nobody's really like listening because that's not how conversations work. We've gone through several drafts of just trying to get that in the right place where it feels like a nice middle ground where we're touching upon issues of identity, but we're not creating long soliloquies and monologues of this is why I am sad because I am mixed. Cry for me. Doing this kind of work and putting that much of your own journey into the film does make the fear come back a little bit. And that little voice that tells me, don't fuck this up. And this also coincides with our nonprofit partner, MASK, the Multiracial Association of Southern California. They're an organization that's been around since the 70s, I think. They've been around a long time. And it's because of their work that we can now check more than one box on the census form in the racial category because they lobbied for that for years and finally got it. So thank Mask. They're our fiscal sponsor. So we are able to take donations. If you want to donate to our film, which I will leave a link to in the description below, they can accept donations on our behalf and then give us those donations. So that way, if you are contributing to the film, it becomes tax deductible, which is something I think more and more independent films are going to be embracing in the near future. And right now, we're using that to try and raise the rest of our production budget and as much of the budget as possible. So that way, we can make sure that we can earn a profit on this film and pay everybody back. We do have a profit sharing system that we're going to be putting forth for this film. So every single person who works on it will get compensated in some way beyond just the low rate that they're going to get. Because honestly, um, even if this film is to have an outsized success, there's no guarantee that this will lead to a next great film with a higher payday for everyone. So we want to make sure that if we do have an outsized success, that everyone gets to benefit, not just the people at the top or the investors. It's just something that's very important to me. So we're still fundraising. We're still continuing to location scout. We have some smaller roles that we have to fill, putting all the things together so we can be ready to shoot by the end of September. There's also some other organizations and brands that I want to reach out to, not only for sponsorship, but just also collaboration. There's a couple of nonprofits that work with the homeless community that I would like to reach out to and also do some screenings for. And I'm also doing this while still trying to hold down freelance work and keep the lights on because it's going to be very hard for me to finish a film and edit it if I have no electricity. I don't know how the rest of this year is going to unfold, but I am closer than I have ever been to making a feature film, which is probably where some of the fear sits in. Another part of this is that making this feature film was a little bit bittersweet for me because my dad passed away in 2007, and he was very, very proud of the fact that I was a filmmaker. My dad was an amateur photographer, and some of our closest bonding moments were when we shared books and also went on photography trips together. We went to one in San Francisco and he would take a picture and then he would hand me the camera and I would take a picture and then I would have an angle that he would never thought of. And it was just a wonderful experience. But unfortunately, he had an addiction problem with alcohol, which took his life in 2007. And on his deathbed, he told me that the small amount of money that he had, he wanted me to use it in order to get back into filmmaking again because he would always ask me how filmmaking was coming and I would basically say like I'm working on these things but I haven't really done anything of my own. And he was like, "Well, don't give up." So once he passed away and I saw that he had kind of like spent his life being a lawyer, not really having the time to do the things that he wanted to do, and he gave me his blessing to do the things that I wanted to do, which was to be a filmmaker. So I took the amount of money that we had that he left to me specifically, and I used that to move out to Los Angeles. And I didn't use that money to make a film directly. I used some of it to make a sketch, which was called Book of Biracial, which you can see on this channel. A lot of that money was used just to survive, but I at least had it in the back of my mind that I was going to at least try to do it. So it's a little bittersweet that he's not here to watch the first feature film that I will make, but it's also because of him passing away that I'm able to make it. I know he's probably watching from somewhere, and maybe I'll save a seat for him in the audience just for him. I know that this is going to be a scary journey. It's going to be an exciting one. It's going to be fun. It's going to be hard, but I'm really looking forward to it, not just for my own sake, but because I would like to see more people making the films that they want to make in the world. I'm in community with a lot of different filmmakers who are doing a lot of different things. And what we talk about on an almost weekly basis is how can we get our film seen without needing a distributor? And we have been talking about working with micro cinemas, independent cinemas. Somebody that I know has a list of all of them and is in constant communication with them on how to get films screened because they have a supply issue. It seems like the future of the filmmaking scene is sharing, it's mutual aid, it's people saying, I want to make this film successful and I can also help you as well. There's more than enough for everybody to eat and have everything that they want. It's not just hoarding everything for ourselves. And that's something that I'm really excited about. And I will be doing my best to document what's happening with this film as much as possible. And I write a lot about this on my Substack. So go to marislidaka.substack.com if you want to follow the journey as things are progressing along. I try to make an update about every other week. And I'm also going to leave a link to the Concrete River website where I'm going to be doing special drops, like more real time things that are happening. I might drop some stills as we're location scouting, maybe some auditions, just little things that will help document the process even further. So go to concreterivermovie.com and sign up for that newsletter, and you can get special updates on how the film is progressing, all the lessons that I'm learning in as close to real time as possible. So here we go. We are off, and Concrete River is happening.